Hello and welcome, everybody. My name is Christopher Brooks. I work for Lexden Customer Experience Management Consultants. And with me today, I have fellow trainer Michael Brandt. Hi, Michael.
Hello, Christopher.
Great to have you with me again here today. So this is a session we're putting on as an intro to our customer experience management training course, which we're going to be running various locations throughout 2024. And what we wanted to do was to really bring it to life a bit more for you, give you an appreciation of how this has come about, some confidence in our credentials in this space, and then go into the three parts of the course, which are motivation, methodology, and mindset. And you'll hear from Michael, who's a specialist in the first part. I'll be hosting the second part, and another one of our colleagues will be hosting the third, and I'll speak on their behalf today. So let's start with customer experience management training then. This is a topic that we've been practicing for many years with organizations. And in fact, our work is live in over 25 countries with global organizations to help them really accelerate customer experience as a leading business practice in their organization. And because of this, it's obviously something it's a discipline. It needs to be able to stand up against any of the other business practices in order to demonstrate contribution. It requires formality and structure if it's going to be sustained. And what we've done over the course of 17 years that Lexden's been around is we've perfected our craft in this area to make sure that customer centricity becomes an enduring practice in an organization. Typically, when we're running projects with clients, there is quite a lot of onboarding with different stakeholders, and there are training programs that are put in place to make sure that various functions, either close to the customer or distant from the customer, understand customer centricity, understand their contribution towards success, and can really learn the craft. And as I say, we historically have always done this within existing client commissions. However, we've been approached a number of times to ask us, are you providing any training on this, even if you're not working with that organization? And eventually we kind of got to the conclusion, well, we could do. A number of us, Michael included, myself included, lecture with universities. So we're very used to taking the content outside of a commercial operation with a client and actually delivering it as a standalone piece. So we took a step back and decided we will do that. We will create content which relates to these three fundamentals that we have found to be essential to sustain customer centricity in an organization. And they are, number one, motivation, understanding why are we doing it, what is the value it's going to deliver to the business, and how are we going to ensure that our colleagues recognize and value this as a priority. Number two is a methodology. And within the methodology, we will talk specifically about the customer-centric operating model, which is something we've designed and created based on various engagements. So it's robust and delivers great formality, gives real confidence to all those in the business. The customer centricity is deliberate, it's defined, and it's designed. And then the third part is mindset. And mindset's a very interesting space because it's the, why we believe this is the right thing to do. What we have found is that leaders of progressive customer-centric organizations have distinctive behavioral traits that you don't find in others. And as part of that section, we go into the 7 of these mindset traits, plus also anyone who is active within customer centricity will know the fundamental role that HR play in helping you to sustain customer centricity within the organization. So the third part goes into that in a lot more detail. So there we have it. Motivation, why are we doing this? Methodology, how are we going to do this? And then mindset is why we believe it's the right thing to do. And bringing those three together as a coordinated piece is what then delivers sustainability of customer centricity within organizations and makes it a leading practice so that other senior stakeholders can see the value and the contribution of being customer centric in an organization. The way we've structured the training is to have each of the parts will be managed and run by a different specialist. So Michael, and Michael, I'll get you to introduce yourself if you don't mind in a moment, but Michael will be looking after the motivation part. And within motivation, we also jump into measurements as well, sometimes just to give some appreciation of how you need to be helping those around you understand the contribution that customer centricity can bring. So that's Michael's focus. He then hands the baton over to myself, and I go into the customer-centric operating model, which is a 7-stage program, which really does embed the voice of the customer in the organization and keep it active and heard everywhere, from those senior prioritization meetings to the human design sessions that are happening, right through to closing the loop and measurement all the way through. And then the third day is headed by my colleague, Kerry Hodgkiss and Ali Machado, and they focus in on the mindset. So it's a very interesting area. Really does help you appreciate how you need to think differently in order to deliver customer centricity in an authentic way. And what we have discovered is that there are different ways you need to behave in order for customer centricity to be more than just a tick box exercise. So we're going to go into each of those parts in a little bit more detail now, and we'll start with the first day, which is the motivation. Michael, can I get you to just give people an appreciation of your background? You and I have been collaborating for many years now, so I know we kind of know each other too well. But if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and then talking us through the motivation part.
Sure. Thank you, Christopher. So my name is Michael Brandt. I've been involved in customer-facing roles and customer experience roles in a corporate environment for some 25 years. So I'm an old dog in that respect, and became an independent consultant and trainer in 2020 after having spent many years training people with respect to customer experience and customer service in a corporate role in a global environment. So it's my pleasure to have the opportunity to present part one of our course, which is motivation. When it comes to motivation, we'll be looking into why do we actually need customer centricity in an organization, and how important it is, and how do we motivate people and the organization to become customer centric. We'll be looking at how we align business strategy and customer expectations in order to accelerate customer satisfaction, our growth, and of course brand loyalty. So that is basically the part surrounding motivation. And then, of course, one of the real things that's important with respect to motivation is to keep that motivation going. And we do that through measurement, because we measure the impact of changes that we might make on both the organization and the customer, of course. So we'll be looking at internal metrics, we'll be looking at external metrics in order to see how to pick those metrics that are relevant, both for the customer and for the organization, and how to decide when to use which methodology. Because the various different types of methodology can be applied at different moments in the customer journey. So we'll look at how to and when to apply these different metrics to best effect. So that is for part one, motivation and measurement.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. That's great. And if I can just spend a bit of time on it, Michael, we've designed this very much in consideration of what it's like to deliver a program, as opposed to kind of a theoretical piece that you might need to help you pass an exam, for instance. So you and I have both had active practice in delivering these programs. So everything that we're going to share with the attendees has actually been practiced and put into place. So it's not something you read in a book and think, how do I interpret it? You can know with confidence, and we'll share during the course how it's been applied from Argentina to Australia, from sort of manufacturing through to retail. With that, would you mind just touching upon the case studies, the purpose of having the case studies throughout the course?
Yeah, sure. So absolutely. And I think that's a really important point because, so often people say, okay, yeah, I want to set up a CX program. How do I do it? And actually, there's no real one answer that fits all the cases, right? So what you do will depend on, where you're at and your industry, the maturity of your organization. So by using these case studies, and we'll have case studies from various different industries, to allow participants to really use real case scenarios in their work, and so it's not theory; it's actual practical exercises, and I think that's really important because one side doesn't fit all. We'll be giving participants the skill and the ability to decide what works best for them in their particular scenario.
And that is our intention, is to make sure that those who are participating can actually see, as we go through the case studies, their sector. As Michael says, the context and the environment and the expectation of customers means that the organization needs to adapt and respond with its customer centricity to be appropriate. Being world class is not necessarily significant in all industries or all countries. In fact, it can just simply be overspending in an area that you're not going to get the value from. So as we go through the course, we'll have different breakout sessions where you'll look at these cases, and some of them will be your industry and others will be industries of others attending the course, and you'll get to see how you take the applications and use them in anger. So that will run as a common theme throughout the course of the 3 days, which means that you also get the opportunity to collaborate with your fellow participants, be that virtually or be that in person. You get to sit down and work through. Now, we run something called the Customer Experience World Games, which is a voluntary movement where we've learned the power of this. We have maybe 190 CX professionals from around the world playing together to solve challenges for charities in this instance. But that concept of coming together and working with people who come at it from a different perspective from yourself is really, really powerful. And we've harnessed that and brought that into the training program. So I'm going to now move on and talk a bit about part 2, which is the methodology. So thank you, Michael. Now, when it comes to the methodology, we're going to focus in on the customer-centric operating model. And the purpose of the customer-centric operating model is to, in a formalized way, bring the voice of the customer into the organization and keep it alive and heard at the fundamental touch points within an organization when decisions are made. And it's been very easy for us to spot where things break down. It's where the customer doesn't have a voice and there is a decision being made by the organization. Now, it would feel very easy to make sure that voice is there, but you start to ask yourself, well, who's accountable for that? Who's responsible for that? And actually, it isn't fair to say everyone in the organization has a responsibility for it, because how do you know what that voice of the customer sounds like? There needs to be a consistent understanding. Now, if you're sitting in a telco company or sitting in a retailer, that is millions of voices coming through. So actually having a formalized approach is really, really important. And equally, if you work in B2B where you've got several, maybe hundreds or maybe just dozens of very important clients, then how do you make sure you get an aggregated, balanced view that supports your business? And this is where it links back to what Michael was saying. So we need, with the first part of the operating model is an effective listening program, which may be deemed as a voice of the customer, but it's actually quite extensive. Really understand about how you need to bring different data sources together, how you need to ensure that you get the balance of the right voice to be heard. We then move around into a section called evaluation. And this is an area we have found in our experience is quite often neglected, because what you should be doing is to making sure that the voice of the customer and the priorities for the customer are balanced against the business strategy. And as Michael was saying, that's where the motivation, understanding how it connects back into what the business is trying to achieve, is very, very important. So we've got a module on that, and we show you the tools and the ways in which we've developed, creating something called an impact tracker, which ensures that the voice of the customer is balanced against the priorities of the organization. And I'm sure anyone watching will also appreciate that when it comes to deciding what we focus on in terms of accelerating customer centricity or making improvements on behalf of the customers, it really needs to be a very objective perspective. And we do find quite often at the senior leadership perspective, there's a lot of subjectivity coming in there. So it's a real discipline to ensure that as a customer-centric lead, you're putting in place a framework to assist and ensure that the leaders within the organization can make this objective assessment against what's right for the business, what's right for customers, and equally what's right for employees in terms of making it a more productive way for them to do business as well. Once you've got to that prioritization, it very soon can unravel unless you have the formality of actually driving change through the design process. So we share some really quite incredible tools that have been developed over the years working with a number of academics to ensure that you keep the behavioral drivers for customers in the conversation at all points of the design. So those who maybe are in different parts of the organization, in product or function or operations, IT, other areas, they then can hear the voice of the customer in a way that they can understand and adapt it to make sure that the changes they make don't only take away the pain or maximize the opportunity, but are delivered in a way that the customers truly value. And that's how you get the sustainability. So we go through that section called design. We then look at the implementation, the responsibility and role of customer centricity, and making sure you have a safe implementation. Everyone needs to be aware of what's going on, and there are different ways in which you need to do that. For some, it could be training, it could be communication, it could be other things. But who is responsible for taking care of that? Well, customer centricity needs to be actively involved in that, even if it's not accountable for it. It needs to influence it. Michael spoke about measurement earlier, and we come into measurement then to really understand how you're measuring progress. And we look at different things like OKRs, objective key results, because a lot of the time with customer centricity, we're helping to contribute to others' KPIs. We're making the sales team more effective. We're making operations more effective. We're reducing dependency on marketing because we've got greater cross-sell coming through. These aren't things that customer centricity can own and say it's responsible for and therefore can take the fame for. They sit within those existing areas. So really understanding how we can measure our progress is important. And then the last part of the operating model is what we call recognition. And this includes both inner and outer closed loop to make sure that where we heard that opportunity or that issue, we actually are closing that off and going back. Now, unbelievably, only 5% of organizations do this, according to Gartner. And it has a significant impact on trust of customers going forward. So therefore, we've got a very formalized approach to make sure this is effective feedback, both for the customers, but also for colleagues. It's amazing how often we find colleagues are not aware of the changes they're making on behalf of customers, and therefore they don't believe the organization is as customer-centric as it should be. So a real complete process, and it's an enduring process that goes on and on and on. If you do want more information about any of these parts of the course, then if you request the course brochure, it breaks it down further and gives you an understanding of it. 2 of our days, our third day is on the mindset, and this is broken into 2 parts. We have the customer-centric mindset, which is a property that Lexden have developed. We've been studying the leadership traits of the advancing customer-centric leaders, and we have identified 7 that stand out as the common behaviors that they have that others who are lagging behind don't necessarily exhibit. And we'll go into each of those and explain what they are and how they can be applied in the space of customer centricity. A very good example is active listening. And active listening is a skill that it's taught out of us at childhood. At childhood, we're taught to already start to confirm what we believe the answer should be before we've heard the question, and therefore we are biased. Active listening allows you to take a step back and really understand what you're being told by a customer, and allowing that to be fully understood and appreciated, and gives you tips and techniques in terms of how to get more information from customers in terms of what you want to hear. That's coupled very closely with another trait, which is curiosity, and to be curious. Some organizations really struggle with this culturally, to be curious. This is how we do things around here. Don't worry about it, just move on. But curiosity is really essential in the world of customer centricity. Why do they feel disappointed even though we've fixed the problem? Why are they still going around the solution that we've developed? Why are they happy even though we've not made a change? It's really understanding and exploring those areas. That's where you get to the true emotional connection with customers. And we go on and on. There's 7 different traits. We do activities. We've got some working activities that we will take you through. So you can develop your own customer mindset behaviors after the training. And the second part of the mindset focus is on what we call the sustainability wheel. And we go into the different techniques that you can use to ensure that customer centricity stays locked into the organization. We've identified these different points where a business can very quickly lose focus if it doesn't have it locked in. A very simple example would be internal communications. When you start to look at the internal communications that go out and you see the frequency that perhaps product messages are going out, or sales messages, or other messages about the organization, you start to realize those which relate to the improvements we're making on behalf of our customer are a very small percentage. And if that's what we're telling our colleagues, the chances are that's what they'll believe. It's a very small percentage of importance to our business. So we help you to address these during the course, understand how you need to change the balance. We also go through employee experience. So whereas things like internal comms and other areas will go into like an ambassador program, how you bring ambassadors through, they are about employee engagement, engaging them in the topic of customer centricity so that customer centricity is top of mind when they're thinking about their decisions. Employee experience is about ensuring that we create the right experience for our colleagues to make sure that through the various touch points, they understand how important customer experience is, and they see the value themselves firsthand. So the onboarding phase, for instance, if this is problematic and the learning is confusing and it's done in a way that the employee feels they're kind of being put out, it creates a very poor impression, regardless of what the content is about. So it's understanding how you develop an employee experience to make sure key touch points for employees, like their appraisal, such as the added benefits package, such as their learning and development program, understanding how important they are as experiences for employees so that they can then feel confident this organization cares about experience. This area is very much one that the customer-centric lead needs to interact with HR on. So we help you understand it, but that is the area where you get real long-term sustainability with customer centricity, whilst the great work is being done to make the improvements. So there you go. That's giving you an expansion on the 3 parts of the program. I think probably with that in mind, Michael, could you give us your view on sort of who is this right for? Who should be thinking about this training program?
Right, sure. So I think, for starters, clearly people who are involved in CX, who want to get new insights, catch up with some of the latest theories and practices. I think that's one thing. But I think it's also a really good course for leaders and managers who may be involved in marketing or sales, who actually want to find out what customer experience is all about. Because very often, we see that we talk about customer experience a lot, but in many cases, there's not a real understanding of what customer experience is. So if somebody is in a sales or marketing role and they say, well, I've heard a lot about customer experience, but I really need to find out more about what it is and how do I go about lighting the touch paper in my organization, then I think that this would be an excellent course for that.
Listen, thank you, Michael. And it can be a springboard for other learning. It can follow on if you've done a formalized exam and you found that it's useful but theoretical. The difference with this course is we've been there, we've had our sleeves rolled up. What you see is the beautiful final product from the many years of hard work in perfecting it to ensure that it works, whatever the environment is and whatever the sector is. But if you are perhaps part of some CPD course, then there's a certification at the end of this course that allows you to book hours against it, so you can use it in that respect. And as happens with our other communities we create, such as the Customer Experience Book Club and the Customer Experience World Games, each of the training programs will create a cohort. And that cohort will continue to go on and be connected, and we will feed them information as we find evidence from different training, different sectors that's relevant to those who attended. We'll pass that information on and share it between cohorts. So we see this as a part of a journey you're on. Hopefully it will be a real accelerant to understand how to formalize things. Hopefully you would get the benefit of using the tools and the techniques in anger. You also get the benefit of, between people like Michael, myself, and Eileen and Kerry, we've sadly got almost 100 years of doing this between us. So you get the benefit of we've all worked in sectors and with clients relating to those attendees who are going to be coming along, so we can help in that respect as well. We are going to be running our next session is going to be a virtual session. We had a lot of interest from locations that we can't physically get to, so we've agreed to run a virtual session, which will be happening in late July. If you'd like to get yourself booked in on that, we will be going into breakout groups and things during that, so it's not one of these 150 people can come along. We will have a limitation to make sure it's effective and we have really productive kind of learning time. So if you're interested in signing up for that, please sign up and you'll get full details. There are a few locations we will be going to later in the year. London is closed now, but we will be going to other locations across the course of the rest of the year and into the new year. If you're interested in that, then please, again, let us know and we will contact you with regards to what those locations and those dates look like. The content will be the same wherever we go. And some of the courses, for instance, if we're in Spain, which we will be presented in Spanish, of course. But the virtual one will be in English. So there we go. That's hopefully giving you a fuller appreciation. Michael and myself will very much look forward to you joining us and hope you really do get from it what we intend, which is to go away feeling super confident, feeling that you've got all the tools and the techniques you need to really accelerate and sustain customer centricity in your organization. Thank you, Michael, for your time.
Thank you, Christopher.
And thank you to those who joined us for this session. Take care.